Yes. Once a week we go out to the West Coast, the left coast, and meet up with Michael Snyder. Where are you today? In Hollywood, Michael?
I am ready for a Hollywood Christmas. I drive past that beautiful Christmas tree formed of lights above the Capitol Records Tower. Wander the Grove. It's an LA. It's a SoCal Christmas, buddy.
Well, it's time to take a look at the movies for this week and in a bit here this year. So this is a kind of our year-end review, but we got to start off with the films that are coming, have just been released, and here's Michael.
Well, The Revenant is going to be on a lot of people's best of the year lists, and it is one of my favorite films of the year, and incredibly powerful, cinematically stunning, a beautiful movie that gets down to the grit of, I guess, the frontier and frontier life. It's about an explorer out in the wilderness who finds himself basically separated from a bunch of his men and traveling with his son, who is half Indian and half him, and a few other guys who are all part of a fur trapping mission that's in conflict with the Native Americans and also the French fur trappers. So there's all this conflict going on, and this guy is separated from his fellows and pursued by his enemies, and in the company of a backstabbing colleague from his own group of fur trappers. And a bear attacks him, and he has to basically survive. From that point on, since he's left for dead, he's on his own, and he's also trying to get to his son, who's kind of moved off into the wilderness with this unsavory character and another colleague. And Leonardo DiCaprio basically gives one of the performances of his career to date. He is a full-grown man. He's no longer Gilbert Grape, and he is powerful. And again, this is beautifully done. The director is Alejandro Inarritu, the guy who did Birdman, and he just keeps on coming up with great films. This is potent stuff. And the fellow fur trapper and explorer who is basically his adversary, the wolf in the fold, is played by Tom Hardy, and another great performance by the British actor Tom Hardy. It is potent. Domhnall Gleeson, who seems to be all over the place. He was in Brooklyn this year. He's in the current Star Wars. He was in Ex Machina. Is also in this film, playing basically the leader of the expedition, a soldiery type. And you know, it's widescreen epic adventure in the wilderness, and it's for real. I think The Revenant is as good as these kind of films get. So kudos. Well, on the flip side, there's The Hateful Eight. And I have to tell you, Quentin Tarantino is a stickler for detail. Quentin Tarantino is a man who loves movies, and he is the sort of guy who says, you know, this is a digital age, but I'm going to shoot in 70 millimeter. I'm going to get all the lenses from the old widescreen, the truly widescreen epics of the past, and I'm going to do an epic Western, one that echoes such classics as The Magnificent Seven. In fact, I'm going to call this thing The Hateful Eight. It's going to be about eight, again, unsavory types out in the frontier and interacting, and I'm thinking this is going to be some exciting stuff. And in fact, the movie is 3 hours and 10 minutes long, something like that, with an intermission. It even has an overture. It let you feel at first you're watching a road show of how the West was won. And the Cinerama logo comes up because the lenses he used were part of the 70 millimeter process that was after the three camera process of Cinerama that gave you this whole kind of immersive experience back in the day, before virtual reality was even a reality. But this is about a number of years after the Civil War, and a bunch of people who are trying to get to a town on the frontier. And one guy in particular is planning to hang his prisoner. He's a bounty hunter, and he's going to do this if it kills him. And the bounty hunter is played by Kurt Russell, and he comes in contact with another bounty hunter played by Samuel L. Jackson. So there's kind of the racial component, and it is a Quentin Tarantino film. So the N-word is, you know, thrown around quite liberally. That might make some people uncomfortable. But everyone ends up at Minnie's, which is a kind of roadhouse. And there's a horrible blizzard, and they're all trapped there. And when I was seeing this film, I felt a little trapped myself because the first half of it, which is a little longer than the second half, you are basically stuck in a room, albeit one shot with a beautiful wide lens, with these unsavory types. And we don't know who's going to try to kill who. They show up, and there's an old retired Southern general sitting there, played by Bruce Dern. You also have supporting work by Jennifer Jason Leigh and Damian Bashir. She's actually the prisoner that's being taken to the hangman in this western town. And Walton Goggins, a fantastic character actor. Michael Madsen. There's even an appearance at one point by a young hunk that we all know of. I'll spoil it. Channing Tatum. He's in the movie. And everybody brings their A game because they all love working with Quentin. There are funny moments. There are exciting moments. There's a lot of violence. But it's in this tiny room for the most part. And until the second half, so you got to be patient, the movie disappointed me. I thought it was kind of dull. And then it picks up radically in the second half of it. But do you have 3 hours and 10 minutes? You're going to have to decide that for yourself. I was disappointed in the movie. Some people may like it. I was disappointed. But The Hateful Eight is another movie by the idiosyncratic Tarantino. So if you are a fan of his, you're going to see it one way or another. You may enjoy it. I liked much of it, and so much of it made me want to doze off that I have to give it this sort of kind of middling.
He's got 2 more pictures to get it right.
Maybe. What you want?
No. He says he's only going to do 10 movies.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised about that.
Let's see how fast he jumps off that wagon.
Well, when you want to buy another mansion overlooking the Pacific in Malibu, those are considerations you got to think about. Joy is the latest film by a director I like very much, David O. Russell, and he now is developing his own little repertory company, so it seems. From Silver Linings Playbook to American Hustle to Joy, he's using a few of the same actors, in particular Jennifer Lawrence as his female lead here, and Bradley Cooper as a supporting player, and Robert De Niro, who was not in American Hustle, or was he? Those small roles that pop up now and again. Anyway, Joy is a bizarre mix of docudrama, docu-comedy, and fantasy, and it's ostensibly based on a woman who created a very successful product, a mop, the Miracle Mop. And she created it at the dawning of the QVC and reality TV, cable television age. And she was living a fairly difficult and miserable life with a marriage on the rocks and a demanding family. And she comes up with this idea, and she decides to try to get it sold on television. And this is her journey. And she's a real person, this Joy person. And she actually went through a lot of the struggles depicted in the movie. But there are flights of fiction in this thing. And again, I can't complain about the actors. Jennifer Lawrence's Joy is a delight to watch. De Niro as her ne'er-do-well father, always entertaining. Bradley Cooper as one of the young executives in charge of QVC. And in fact, they mention real people all the time, like Barry Diller, who was a major investor in that. And there is a couple of scenes with Joan Rivers, who was one of the major spokeswomen, pitchwomen on QVC until she passed away. And she's actually played by Melissa Rivers. And, Isabella Rossellini plays the ne'er-do-well father's second wife or girlfriend. You get Diane Ladd as grandma. Wow, you can't complain about the cast. Everybody, again, wants to deliver for a renowned director, and they all bring it. But I just felt it a little kind of contrived. And they tried to make drama where it maybe wasn't. And comedy where, maybe not all there. There's a little sequence with the mother being obsessed. Joy's mother is obsessed with soap operas, and she's watching a soap opera. And David O. Russell gets some soap opera veterans like Susan Lucci to shoot these kind of heavy-handed sequences that are clearly meant to evoke old soap operas, but they seem just a little too kind of condescending for my taste. On the other hand, he's a good director. I love his work. I think that American Hustle is the best thing he's done since Three Kings, and this does not come close to either of those films. But there will be people who like joy, and who doesn't love joy? We all want a joy. We all want to embrace happiness, and at least this is one of those success stories you can get behind. A typical American tale, rags to riches, etc. Concussion was a major disappointment, almost better served if you saw a Frontline documentary about the subject. Will Smith is the star, and he plays the African-born doctor who comes to America as an immigrant, gets a career working in a morgue, and blows the lid off the NFL's concussion problem. Essentially, he's based in Pittsburgh, and a number of the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming down with severe mental disorders, and a couple guys, their lives go to hell. And as the autopsies are being performed by this doctor, he starts noticing things about their brains and tries to bring it to the attention of the NFL and of his colleagues, in the city morgue. And basically, he's thwarted at many turns. And again, this is a true story, and I really think that it might have had some kind of resonance for me, more so had I seen it in a detailed, kind of broadcast journalism way. I'm sure there are specials out there about it if you go dig for them. The NFL really hates this whole story, doesn't want to deal with it particularly, but has put a lot of interesting rules in place to protect their players since all of this started coming out. But if you want to see some of the nuts and bolts of how it came about, kind of pumped up with drama. Gugu Mbatha Raw, who's an actress I really like, a British actress I like, plays the love interest in this. Alec Baldwin plays a fellow expert, fellow doctor who gets on board with our hero. And look, chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a real problem, and it may end up being the death knell for America's favorite sport. But as one character in the movie says, the NFL owns Sundays during the football season. It is a juggernaut. And this guy, Bennett Omalu, goes up against them. And, again, the story's interesting, but I thought this was pretty dry stuff. A bit of a disappointment as well. By the way, Paul Reiser plays a doctor in this thing. You didn't even recognize him. And then I saw him, and Albert Brooks, also a colleague of Omalu's, and he's very good. The guys, again, you're dealing with strong performances, but it didn't seem to me like an end of the year winner. I don't think it's going to do anything at the box office either. You may want to watch it when it comes to cable. I was disappointed in Concussion. Yeah, I'm not going to say Concussion gave me a headache, but, and director Peter Landsman, who also wrote it, he obviously is passionate about the situation. And I love football, too. And this is kind of horrific when you realize what's going on. But I just didn't get caught up in the drama of it. Daddy's Home is the latest Will Ferrell comedy. Did not see it. He co-stars with Mark Wahlberg as a couple of, I guess, the father in an estranged marriage, and then the new boyfriend are coming to blows over who gets to be the daddy for the offspring. I think that's the basic nut of it, and it just, I didn't have the time to catch it. Probably happily. I'm just guessing.
Okay. Well, that's the movies for the week. Now let's look at, the more recently released movies. But let's take a look at the year now.
Well, what do you want to know, buddy?
Well, what was your favorite film?
Well, I would say my favorite film of the year, I picked about 7 that I thought were like the best movies I saw in 2015 in the English language. And narrative features. I mean, there were some documentaries and foreign films and animated films that I loved. But in terms of things that you could watch without having to read subtitles, and watch something created by a computer. Well, wait, that's a lie. There's some computer animated stuff in everything these days, but Beasts of No Nation was violent and disturbing and heartbreaking. It's about a kid, a child soldier fighting in the civil war of a West African country as part of a unit of conscripted children. I thought it was just incredibly moving. Not my favorite film of the year, but among my 7 favorite. Idris Elba does incredible work as the commander of the unit, a cruel, exploitive bastard. And if you know Elba in his more heroic turns or his performances as Luther, the detective, this is, very, very much a 360 for him. And the director is Kari Fukunaga, and he wrote the thing. And this is an important story. We should all be aware of what's going on in the war-torn Third World territories in Africa and the tragedy that's facing these kids. It's powerful and brutal. My favorite film, I will single one out. My favorite film, maybe I'm in the minority, maybe not, The Big Short. Again, shocked that the director was Adam McKay, because this is so smart and so clever and so informative and funny and all of the above. When it deals with a topic that seems drier than paint from 20 years ago. It's all about the housing, mortgage, and banking crisis that triggered the 2008 recession. And it is just so well done. The script is so inspired on so many levels, and even down to the smallest cameos, like Karen Gillan from Doctor Who and Guardians of the Galaxy plays a small role in this, and she's terrific. The guy who plays Schmidt on New Girl is in this. He's terrific. But Christian Bale as a kind of rocker broker, a rock and roll guy who sits around his California office in shorts, barefoot, playing the drums when he wants to let off steam. Just wonderful, like you've never seen him. Steve Carell, top drawer. Ryan Gosling and Brad Pitt. This quartet of actors are just wonderful to watch. And McKay and his co-screenwriter also give you information in such a clever and inspired way. They have real people kind of break up the drama, break up the narrative by explaining the crisis and doing so in a very understandable manner. So I thought The Big Short was just a win on so many levels. If you want something a little warmer, Brooklyn, which is a romantic period drama about a young Irish immigrant who's sort of navigating her way through 1950s Brooklyn. And Saoirse
by
Ronan,
the way, courtesy of the Academy, I was able to see this just last weekend, and this is an amazingly simple film,
Beautiful.
but just carries you along.
Again, Saoirse Ronan, first real adult role for the young Irish actress, and just terrific. And she makes this love connection. It's the early 50s. She leaves her family, her mother and sister, back in Ireland, and decides to kind of make a life for herself. She's being shepherded by an Irish priest who lives in New York now, played by the great Jim Broadbent. And, one of the strengths of this film, the script is absolutely perfect, and it's done by Nick Hornby, the novelist and screenwriter of High Fidelity and Education, which is also, unlike High Fidelity, which was his own book that he adapted.
Don't forget About a Boy.
About a Boy, again, one of his own books that he adapted. And then An Education is something where he took a woman's memoir of her coming of age in the 60s and wrote a fantastic script. This is also about a young woman coming of age. She gets involved with this very kind and earnest Italian-American suitor, played by an actor I don't know that well, Emery Cohen. It is wonderful. And Domhnall Gleeson, he's in this thing. He's everywhere. I've really got a kick out of all the performances, and I thought that Brooklyn was just adorable. If a movie could be called adorable, that's Brooklyn.
It's a very, very good film. Yeah.
The Diary of a Teenage Girl features one of the breakout performances of 2015, and it gives heart and soul to this. Another coming-of-age story, but one where the actress portrays a woman coming of age a little earlier in her life. It's set in San Francisco in the mid 70s and shot in location in the city by the bay by a first time director named Marielle Heller. And it's based on a 2002 graphic novel memoir by Phoebe Glockner. And in this, we meet Minnie, who's kind of bright, sensitive, artistic, kind of an ugly duckling who's about to bloom. And this character provides a stunning showcase for Belle Powley. She is a British actress, but her American accent and her attitude are dead on. I was just blown away.
Let me just say that since we're doing a roundup of the year, to re-review these things in their entirety, I think we don't.
No. I just want people to be aware of this thing because you know what? Yeah. It's the kind of movie that could fall through the cracks. And Belle Powley won the Gotham Awards Best Actress. But other than that, we don't hear much about it. And Kristen Wiig as the single mother who doesn't really give a rat's ass, and Alexander Skarsgård as the handsome boyfriend of the mother, who's also kind of a little too interested in the kid. They're all really great. I'll tell you what, I will focus in on a couple more, and then we will just rattle off a few that I think people should check out. Ex Machina, my favorite science fiction film of the year, dealing with the possibility of sentience and life like robots. It's scary. It's clever. It's beautifully executed. And you'll believe a robot can think. Let's put it that way. Domhnall Gleeson is back as the underling to a very powerful billionaire tech CEO, and the CEO invites him to his remote hideaway to check out the company's new artificial intelligence program and test for, self-awareness, the Turing test. And the AI comes in the form of this very realistic looking and behaving female robot played by Alicia Vikander, one of the best performances of the year and a very difficult role to essay. Loved this. Loved Ex Machina. Room, very dark and very, very deep and very, very intimate. Small-scale drama with big payoffs. A young mother and her 5-year-old son have been kind of closed off from the world for the kid's entire life, and then they're sprung out into the real world. And the mother's always been caring and dedicated, but when their circumstances change and they have to adjust, it's very, very moving. Brie Larson as the mother does phenomenal work here. You get great support from Joan Allen and William Macy as her parents. It's based on a novel by Emma Donoghue, and she also adapted it for the screen. I thought Room was great. And finally, in terms of the movies I think were all the best of the year, must see, Spotlight is as powerful and as potent as you're going to get from a docudrama. It's all about the Boston Globe's Pulitzer Prize-winning investigation into the Catholic Archdiocese in Boston after a wave of child molestation allegations that may have inspired a subsequent cover-up. Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, and Rachel Adams are a trio of crusading journalists who are part of the newspaper's investigation, and it's a must-see film. Tom Hooper was the director of this, and applause all around. Liev Schreiber plays the Globe's crusading new editor, who inspires the guys from the Spotlight division at the paper to go after the diocese. Stanley Tucci's wonderful. Great stuff. I don't know what you've seen of those 7, other than you said you caught Brooklyn.
Well, I'm ready to see them because the screeners are becoming available today for the SAG Awards, which I can vote on. And so I'm waiting to see that, and Revenant is available, and quite a few of the films that you mentioned today. So
yeah, they're all great.
The only one I've really gotten to see, I saw Ex Machina when it came out, and I saw, of course, Brooklyn the other day. So
right. Yeah. Again, we mentioned The Revenant, and it's one of my the rest of my favorites of the year, which include, as I rattled them off, movies you should see: 99 Homes, Carol, The Danish Girl, The End of the Tour, Grandma, best performance by Lily Tomlin on the big screen in a very, very long time. Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson biopic. Mad Max Fury Road is good as an action-adventure movie can be, basically. The Martian, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, kind of another little film. Sicario, about the drug wars.
Great, that's a good film. That's a really good film.
You didn't like it, but I liked Steve Jobs. I thought that the
I never
performance.
saw Steve
Oh,
Jobs.
you haven't seen it as yet. I
No,
thought you didn't like it. Oh, you don't like Steve Jobs, the guy. I get
that's
confused.
right. That's right.
Trumbo, which I thought was
Excellent.
the first-rate film. Bryan Cranston as the blacklisted writer in the 50s who was part of the victimized by the communist witch hunt. The Walk, about Philippe Petit's stroll on a wire between
Very good film.
towers of the World Trade Center. And Youth, the latest by Pablo Sorrentino as Michael Caine and various other top-notch actors kind of get together in a spa in Switzerland and reflect on their lives. In terms of foreign films, Breathe, Son of Saul, and White God. We talked about Son of Saul recently. Breathe, wonderful coming-of-age thing done by the director. Inside Out was my favorite cartoon animated movie. And in terms of documentaries, 3.5 minutes, 10 bullets. Amy, the Amy Winehouse documentary. That Kid Begins. He Named Me Malala. Kingdom of Shadows, The Salt of the Earth, and The Wolf Pack. So, there's been some pretty worthwhile movies this year.
Quickly, without going into great detail, give me your top actor, your top actress.
I would say, it's interesting to suggest. I think Belle Powley is my favorite actress of the year, and I thought that Diary of a Teenage Girl rises and falls on the strength of her performance, and I thought she was great. And I believe I would suggest that Bryan Cranston in Trumbo is my favorite actor of 2015. I thought the performance was first rate. I just really was impressed with everything he did up there. Fully realized performance on his part.
Well, as I say, I've met Trumbo. I interviewed Trumbo years ago. And it's a believable performance about the guy. I mean, it accurately portrays him without trying to do an impression of him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the
attitude was there.
Yeah, it'd be like kind of dull to do an impression of the guy. I mean, but yeah, I would say, and I also was very impressed with Jason Segel in the end of the tour, believe it or not. I thought that was one of, that's so far a highlight in his career, playing David Foster Wallace, actor who committed the novelist who committed suicide. Very good. And Brie Larson, we mentioned her, and Saoirse Ronan from Brooklyn. All great. All performances worth seeing.
Okay, well, that kind of wraps up the year, doesn't it?
Yeah, rat-a-tat-tat, man.
Yeah, a little longer than usual, but we had to get to all the films of the year. And thank you so much, Michael, and we'll see you next year.
Hey, Happy New Year to all listeners on GABNet and Roku. You can catch me on Twitter at Culture Blaster and at the Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page at Facebook.
And that's it for this year for Michael. We'll see him next year, and we'll see you in just a few moments with more GABNet. Thank you, Michael.
You bet.